Hello, welcome to the Blondes Restoration Conversation.
Blondes conversation, know you matter.
Is that our new jingle?
No,
Oh,
never doing that again. Oh my gosh. So we've got a little I can't think we kind of did this in the last episode, but we've got a bit of a pivot in how we're going to do this, because I want this to feel, and I think you do as well, like people have just walked into our little, like, after dinner glass of wine, glass of, soda water or whatever you'd have, chat. That's what I want this to feel like. So it's just like you're part of our conversation. So it's not prepped and it's not polished and it's certainly not fucking perfect.
No, it's definitely not perfect.
Definitely not that.
And it's also a conversation, just in case anybody's joined us at this point, between a mother and daughter.
Yeah.
Who run a business together.
Yeah. So it's just, that's what the vibe is. That's what the vibe that I want to feel is. So I've got this new theory that we just ask a question at the start. So I have a question for you today that I would like you to answer. And I've already thought about it, so it's quite fun. What would your 8-year-old self think of your life right now?
As in what I'm doing right now?
Yeah, as in, like, so if your 8-year-old self had a little, like, Doctor Who style screen and they could see us now living this life that we're living and you being the way you are and all that kind of stuff, what would they think?
So the first thing that came into my head, so there's I think there's a picture, and I can't decide if I'm 7 or 8. And I've used this in Positive Intelligence
On the beach.
The picture of me
cheeky
on the beach. Yes, because in Positive Intelligence we do quite a lot of inner child work, and there is a whole section where you do these statements about I am this, I am that, I am the other, I'm definitely cheeky, and I was definitely, when you look at the photograph and the stance, I'm doing the original
power stance,
superwoman pose, like the power stance, and I am well up for it. And that photograph, I hadn't seen that for ages when I did it a few years ago, and it just made me think, oh my god, that was me, like, and I think so. My immediate thought was, that little girl, she'd be looking at me going, "What's the matter with you? What do you mean you're scared of things? Crack on!" I mean,
scared.
Yeah, well, she wouldn't have been swearing. Just so you know,
Sorry.
my 8-year-old wouldn't at all. It didn't happen in our house.
Yeah,
it happened in our house. But yeah, she'd be a little bit like, what are we scared of? No, come on, all of that. And also she'd be like, oh yeah, you go you. And I think there's a bit more, but I'd like a chance to think about it, because I actually think you've had a bit of time to think about that question, haven't you? So I'd like to hand over to you at this minute and ask you the same question.
So it was dead funny, because I was like, oh, there's a couple of different ways that I think this could go, because 8-year-old me had some very high opinions, some very strong opinions about things that now I'm like, oh, babe. So she'd think it was mint that I had a husband and a kid. She'd be like, that's amazing. But I think she'd probably think I was fat, because she had a real thing about being thin. And I remember from being like 6 being like, I need to be skinny. I think someone once, when I was like 6 or 7, told me I shouldn't be wearing shorts like that because I was a bit chunky. I was tiny as a child as well, which is ridiculous. So I do think that she might judge me for that, but I would just be like, oh, babe, like, that's going to change. But I think she'd be absolutely buzzing that we were doing a podcast. Like, people purposefully tuning in to hear what she's got to say. She'd be like, no. I think that, like, because like a podcast is like the ultimate place to be seen and heard, right? Well, maybe not seen, depends on what you're doing, but like, this is people purposefully tuning in to listen. And I think that's amazing. And I think that she would think that was like shit hot. So yeah, there's like a real mixed bag. She'd be like, what do you mean you haven't painted this week? What do you mean you haven't made something? I'd be like, sorry, gal. Yes, all right, I need to come back and paint some more. Okay. But yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? Because as you were talking there, the whole mix of what my 8-year-old self would be, just as you were speaking and listening to you about the different parts of her already, the parts of her that were very, like, she kind of knew what she thought, and she liked to voice that. And I'm kind of not surprised, being amongst, by 8 there was 4 of you.
to have
so you
strong
needed
opinions.
to have an opinion at that time. And yet, so I'm thinking, do you know, my head went straight to positive intelligence, and I was thinking about the fact that by that point, a lot of who I was already formed, and now there's parts of me that had forgotten the confidence, the part of me that really is cheeky and fun and just likes to do those kind of things, and actually there's the bits of her that were already, doing the tendency to people please and stuff like that as well. I think I think 8-year-old me would be like, whoa. Whoa. Because do you know, it's funny because when you asked me the question, I was trying to work out in my head, when did I become really interested in why people behave the way that they do? And I can't have been much older than that, because, the ultimate throughout school was to go and do psychology, which I did at A level. But I was always fascinated by why people behave the way that they do. I think I've felt that way for a long time. And of course that kind of starts with yourself and, why things happen. So yeah, I think she'd be kind of proud of me. I think she'd go, what happened? If she could come and sit next to me on the say, I'm literally seeing her with her legs swinging. And she'd be having a good look around.
Probably the same height as you, because you're not really grown since then.
I haven't grown much since I was 8, actually. That's yeah. If you've seen on Instagram the tiny restorations from a tiny coach,
because she is tiny.
Yeah, I'm not. Well, I'm not tiny. There are people who are tinier than me, but height wise, I'm not. As my 3-year-old grandson likes to tell me, I'm small.
Gran's like a baby.
I'd like to point out, none of them are taller than me yet. I know there will be. But yeah, I think she'd be sat there like you, a bit fascinated that we're doing something like this.
Yeah.
That we, do you know what it is? I think she'd also be pleased that I didn't give up.
Yeah.
Because I think she would definitely, if she was sat next to me and we were talking about it, I think she'd be looking at some of the stuff that's happened and think, what?
Whoa.
We experienced that.
You went through that and you're still here?
Yeah.
Wow.
And you're still laughing.
Same as you were when you were 8.
Yeah.
It's never changed.
Yeah. Yeah, because she was... And do you know, it's interesting because I think I spoke to this with somebody recently about a big part of my life at that point. Bearing in mind we didn't have a lot of the things that kids have now. It was a lot of outdoors. My roller skates, they weren't blades, roller skates, all of that kind of stuff, playing on the green out the front of the house, the grate where the drain cover used to become a portal for worlds for me, because that was my imagination. I did a lot of Lego. Like, I think that's the thing. She'd look at me now and go, oh, you get to read, because I was an avid reader. You get to make things, and by that I mean, the things that I do with clients, and booklets that I create for them, and that kind of thing, that I just love it. And I feel sometimes I am allowing that 8-year-old me to have a bit of fun with it all. Yeah. And she'd probably, I tell you what she'd be saying to me, stop taking life so seriously at times.
Yeah. Yeah. Lessons from my 8-year-old self. Yeah, and I love it, because actually I did hear this years ago from a very incredible lady who said, take the task in hand more seriously and yourself less seriously. And I think that's a big lesson for me, because I think I do take things, and I understand why I take things seriously. Yeah, she'd be looking at me going, a bit more fun, please. a bit more fun. And what do you mean you don't just want to go and do that thing? Just do it.
Just go and do it.
Just do it.
Just do it. I want the bikini. All right.
Yeah.
You rocked it, love.
Sassy.
8-year-old you. You looked amazing. Like, now I'm like, oh. But I do think it's that.
Yeah.
And I think, do you know what it is? I think she'd be looking at me now and going, you still care a bit too much about what other people say. How come we've not learned to trust ourselves yet? Possibly some of that. What about you?
Yeah, well, you said, when you were talking about like being interested in people's behaviours and stuff, I've never realised that was something that I'd always had. but it's because when you said it starts with yourself, I like vividly remember, like my whole life since I can remember, thinking that I'm different to everyone else, like, and being like thinking something and then having a thought on top of that thought that goes, oh my God, how weird are you? No one else thinks like that. Like, and I used to think like that all of the time. So I'd like have a thought when I was out and about with like school friends and stuff. We used to play 2 Man On. I absolutely loved 2 Man On in the village where we grew up. And it was basically where it was like hide and seek Tig.
All right, okay.
And 2 of you were on.
Oh,
so
right,
2
okay.
of you would go to wherever the located place was, and everyone else would run away and hide. And then the 2 of you had to find everybody. That was 2 Man On. I used to fucking love that game. It was so good.
What did you love about it?
I don't know, just really good at it. Like, I could get into the tiniest little bushes, stay there, really quiet. Nobody could find me. So I loved those. But like, we'd be playing those and I'd say something and everyone would go quiet because I'd say something that was weird, or like that people wouldn't think the same way I did, or I'd say things that sounded like grown-ups a lot of the time. And it's interesting because the reason I'm saying that is because I think if she could see me now, and the fact that for the first time in my life since like in the last year or so, that I've lent into the fact that I'm different and possibly neurodivergent, and I'm going, oh, that's why. She'd be like, oh, thank God. Like, you're not just really weird. Like, your brain's a little bit different.
You're just glorious.
Like, yeah, you just... And she'd be like, oh, and then she'd be like, and oh my God, you're making like a business out of it. Like, what? I'm like, being different and that being okay and it being important. I think she'd be like, that's insane.
Yeah.
I also don't think she'd be shocked though, because she had big dreams. Like, I think she'd be fuming at me that we've not written a book yet.
What you have?
Well, no, not written a book, as in
written.
like a novel. Yeah. Like, I've got a book, but it's not like, you know, it's not a book. So yeah, she'd be fuming at me that we've not written a book yet, that we don't have a novel out, and also that we haven't been to space.
Oh,
that would be a real bugbear for her, a real problem. But other than that, she'd think I was doing pretty well.
Are both of those things on your list?
Yeah.
The book and space.
Yeah, not Katy Perry style though. That gives me the ick. But yeah, I'd love to go to space. Oh my God, I'd love to go to space. I can make myself cry thinking about it. The thought of sitting outside the world and seeing where we all live, all at once, all together, right there. I just think that is the most astounding feat of human achievement. I love it so much.
If you could do it and guarantee me that I wouldn't have the after effects of feeling it, or the effect of, you know, as you go.
Oh, well, since
like
having vertigo,
exactly,
now,
that's a bit.
like, it might be that it's a problem, but I'd put it up with it to get a really good sick bag. But I'd put up with it for that.
Yeah, I think it'd be pretty incredible.
I just think it'd be insane.
I love that that's what she wanted.
Yeah.
Do you know, my 8-year-old me would be surprised at me actually, that I always wanted to travel.
Yeah.
So when I think about being a little girl, and again, it was a different time in terms of what you saw on the telly and stuff like that, but I was fascinated by like mammals and the sea, and you know, being able to travel and see other worlds, and you know, just do things like that. And I do think she would be sat there going, well done, you've been to other places,
you've seen loads of things,
and you've seen lots of things right now. She would be like, what do you mean you haven't swum with dolphins? What do you mean that we haven't done that yet? You're 55. You've had 43 years to go and do that, and you haven't done that for me yet. That's really weird that I remembered that. But I love dolphins. 43 plus 8 is 55. So since she was 8... Oh no, it's 51, isn't it? It's a bit more. On live on air. I got my maths wrong. Oh yeah.
47.
47, that's it.
Sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I just got confused.
No, you needed the numbers to be right. I know.
I did. I struggled with
I
that
can
a
see
lot.
from your face. I was like, I just got that sum wrong. It's okay. I don't
Sorry.
care. But yeah, she'd definitely be a bit like, what do you mean?
Yeah. If you could do anything, so if like she could look at your life right now and go, you know, you need to do this. Like, what would it be? Like, you need to do this thing because we've dreamed about it and you need to just do it.
Ooh, that's a good question.
Do you know what mine would be? And I don't know why this is in my head, but I remember sitting at the window in that tiny little primary school with the boy that used to be my friend and talking about doing it together when we were that small, climbing Kilimanjaro. Why? Don't know. But she'd be like, why haven't you done it yet? Come on. Off you pop. We could do that. Should we do it? Should we treat our 8-year-old selves? So that's mine. So we'll go climb Kilimanjaro. What's yours? Is it swimming with dolphins?
Possibly.
That makes me a bit uncomfortable. I'm not sure I want to do that with you.
I do. In a heartbeat.
I don't know.
I just think the thought of
being in the water with them while they come, that's fine. Yeah. I don't want to do that thing where they like push you around.
No. But yeah, to be in the water and just to
experience.
Yeah, to swim with them and to experience. I think they're the most beautiful and intelligent creatures.
So clever, aren't they?
They are so clever.
I kind of want to touch one because I don't know what it's going to feel like, but I also don't want to touch one.
Do you not? Is that not?
Like the thought of touching it makes me go a bit.
So maybe that's it. Maybe there's a challenge there.
Kilimanjaro and swim with dolphins.
Yeah, and write a book.
Yeah, well, the write a book one I keep coming back to because I've got a book idea.
I know
it's
you do.
in my notes.
I know.
I just need to sit down and write it. I need a creative writing class or something that I can go to.
Need to just crack on, woman.
All right. Just
get it
on.
Started. Just do a bit.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's anything else. What about the people listening?
Yeah. What would your 8-year-old self think of you? Would they be proud? Would they think you were cringe? Probably. Mine would definitely probably think I was cringe. But I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Mine, I don't know. I think it'd be really interesting to hear your stories about 8-year-old you. Do you know what it is? I can't get 8-year-old me out of my head and then 13-year-old me. Because if you compare 13-year-old... she wasn't. 13-year-old me, I look at 13-year-old me and I still look like 8-year-old me. Because 13-year-old me
with the short
looks
hair
very different to what 13-year-old children look like now.
Yeah.
I definitely hadn't changed much, I don't think. And still was as short as I am now. That hadn't changed much. Yeah, it's me. I don't know, that's a really good question. And coming back to the fact that actually I'm quite reflective, I feel a bit like I'd like to land that a little bit, let that land a little bit more and think about who I was as a little girl and
what they think about you now.
I do you know something that just struck me there? I know that this is to do with coping mechanisms. I definitely remember being a good girl.
Yeah, same.
And I also remember not liking it if it wasn't top of the class.
Yeah, same.
At 8-year-old.
Yeah.
So the possibly 8-year-old would be looking at me now and going, "You didn't get a degree." I did, but it was just later. Thanks.
Mine would be like, "Yes,
you did it."
She'd be like, "Yeah, I knew we were clever."
Yeah. Mine would want to know why on earth did I go to Butlins.
Yeah, well, that's a story.
I went to the University of Life first and then headed off to do other stuff. Yeah, I think I already know. And also 8-year-old me was already starting to be a bit afraid of people. And beginning to hide herself a little bit.
Yeah.
So maybe it's interesting. Maybe she wouldn't be quite so in my face about the fact that, I'm not out there and...
Yeah, maybe it would be slightly younger than that.
Yeah.
Before that kind of
happened.
Yeah.
With that. But yes, I think she'd be proud of me. I'm proud of me.
Yeah, good.
I think the things that, I've experienced and dealt with and to be here, I'm proud of that. Which I'm not sure that I would have said that to you a few years ago.
I love that.
I am.
Yeah.
I am pleased with it. And I love what we're doing. And do you know what? She was a possibilitarian, which I love that word. Yeah, I love that word. She was one of those.
Yeah, she just believed things could happen.
Yeah, lots of ideas, lots of thinking. And I don't think I've ever changed.
No.
I love the thought that 8-year-old me's in me.
Yeah.
And one of the things, I know I mentioned positive intelligence a bit earlier, you know it, because actually there's the most beautiful photograph of you in a garden that we used to live in years ago that always makes me think of you. And then another one of you with you've got like a little gingham, is it a little gingham dress on or a little red dress? You did a beautiful
Or the one where I'm
piece.
sat.
And it just, that inner child bit, isn't it? And bringing that essence of who you are.
Yeah, actually, that's really interesting because I saw a post the other day and obviously it's done something in my brain because I can't stop thinking about it. And I think it's because I don't agree with it. And it was a very clever hook as a person who works with social media. So it was a woman who'd said, I broke up with 5 of my friends recently and this is why for each one. And then each slide was like, Ebony, was a complete pick-me and really didn't manage very well with, being a girl's girl. And then it was like Olivia, I'm trying to think of an example, but it was like Olivia was really sullen, was a constant victim and like all of this kind of stuff. And it was all of these things. And then at the end she was like, they're all me. So they weren't her friends. It was all versions of her that she was breaking up with from the past. And she was like, I'm now ready to move forwards and I'm not interested in them anymore. So I've broken up with them and I've let them go. And it made me really sad because we've come at that from such a different perspective when we've talked about the past versions of ourselves, where it's not about turning around to, because there's a past version of me. She's 17 and she's a massive pick-me. And she just is desperate for attention from anybody she can get it from and all that kind of stuff. But I don't look at her with disdain. I'm not like, oh God, you need to get away from me. Like the past me that looks like that, I go, oh babe, like come in, have a hug. Like, let's talk about it. Of course you didn't feel like you were getting attention. This is not a healthy way to go about it. Let's talk about it. Do you know what I mean? And when we talk about the past versions of ourselves, because we talk about the house, don't we? And like the past versions of ourselves live throughout this house that is us. And they're all in there. And they all have things to say. And they all come up and get triggered in different situations and things like that. But it's learning that they're all going to stay there. We just need to learn which one's going to be the one that's answering the door, And yeah, it's really because I really want to comment and say, no, I don't agree with this. I don't actually think it's very kind to feel like you have to get rid of all of those versions of yourself. Although I think the format of your carousel was impeccable. Because you really had me going and I got all the way to the end. So 10 out of 10 on your social media.
Yeah.
Is it not sure about the concept behind it?
Yeah. So what you're saying is that you and I have talked about it being the opposite and actually the loving the parts, because it's interesting, isn't it? That's some of the stuff that I know I've talked about this week with people, is the parts of us that show up that then we shun. And because maybe, we don't see ourselves like that person, or I'm not normally like that.
Yeah.
Or, that's not me. Or let me just tell you, I am all those things. In fact, that was what the counselling gave me.
Yeah.
Was an understanding that I am all of those bits. And do you know
I
what? Maybe I don't sometimes
and
find them the most comfortable. But absolutely, they're there for a reason. They tell me something if I choose to listen to it.
Yeah.
And finding a way to listen to them.
Yeah.
Because do you know one of the ones that sticks out? It's funny because you were saying about the sullen. She broke up with this part of her because she was sullen. There's the pick me version or the victim.
That was the one I was thinking about.
I know.
She's the one I struggle with.
I thought you would.
The rest of them I'm learning to really welcome, but the victim one I'm finding really hard.
I bring her in, let her come and sit right next to me.
I'm getting closer. Yeah. I've opened the door.
I let her. Do you know what? I think the thing is that's been my biggest way out of that is actually letting her in.
Yeah.
Letting her in. There's a really brilliant... Have we shared about the Elizabeth Gilbert letters that she writes to herself? So I don't think we have on here, have we? Oh, Lauren's shaking her head at me. I don't know if this is useful to anybody. It's just a really quick thing. If you've ever had the Calm app, you might have heard this masterclass by Elizabeth Gilbert. It's just really clever. I love her. So Elizabeth
her
Gilbert,
book, Big Magic.
Big Magic.
You should read that.
Eat, Love, Pray.
You should read Eat, Pray, Love.
Eat, Pray, Love. Oh God, honestly. Well, that's 3 things.
I can't help it.
No, it's fine, but I did care. I'm noticing. But her books are brilliant. The film with Julia Roberts, I do notice her, is absolutely amazing. And this masterclass that she did, which I found incredibly useful. I'm not going to remember it all, but she is talking about her relationship with this part of her that's very fearful. Every single time she gets creative, And I've adapted what she's done there within a lot of the work that I do. So she's talking about, she wants to maybe write a new book, or there's a new idea. And here's her good old friend, Fia, turns up. And it's like this part of her that shows up.
Yeah.
And the practice that she does is she writes a letter from that part of her to herself. So it's like, Dear Elizabeth, I am your Fia. This is what I'm here to tell you. And she lets it out. Yeah. She literally
I'm absolutely terrified that this is going to fail. What if everybody hates us?
Yeah, and then she writes a letter back. I love it. She writes a letter back. Oh, so Dear Fia.
Healing,
and she's now, and she talks about, she says, the bits that stood out for me are the fact that, we're going on this journey. You're part of the family, which is where for me these whole other parts of me and versions of me, you're part of the family.
Yeah.
You're welcome on the bus. So we're on this tour bus and we're going to go do this journey for creativity and we're going to make something. And she says,
but you're not driving.
You're welcome at the table. You are, but dude, and she says it like that. She goes, but dude, you're not allowed to change the radio. You have not got control of the map, and no way are you driving.
Yeah.
No way. So it's like you've got your part, and that's because she listens.
Yeah.
So she
doesn't try and avoid it.
Yeah. So just to say, I did that with my victim.
Yeah.
So that part of me, and I've also done it with other parts of me, and versions of me where I've let them tell me.
Yeah.
Exactly how they felt. And what it was like for them in that moment, and what they were, maybe all their feelings. And then I've written back.
Yeah.
And there's been something quite cathartic about that, to listen.
So I think you'd be really proud of me. I didn't do it like a letter, but on Monday morning, so my husband's been poorly. He's had a cold. And I struggle when he's poorly. But I know what it is. I know it's not that I don't want him to be sick. It's not that he doesn't get the care or anything like that. It's because I know that when I'm poorly, I push through it, and I don't think having a cold's sufficient enough to take time off and that kind of thing. Then he does it, and it's not that I'm mad at him. I'm mad that I don't get that, but it's me who doesn't give me it anyway. And I got up. He was still in bed. I got our son ready. There was a lot going on, and I took my son to nursery, and that's hard in itself at the minute because, as you know, he's very much like, Daddy, I hate you and I love you only, Mummy. And it's quite a lot of pressure. I love him. But on the drive home, I noticed that I wanted to cry, and I was like, why do I want to cry? Like, there's nothing going on right now that makes me want to cry, but I want to cry. And then I was like, what do I actually want to do? And I was like, I really want to journal. And I love journaling, and I love the science behind journaling, but I don't do it loads. I don't know. I don't always feel connected to the paper. But this, I really wanted to journal. So I went and sat down, and I lit a candle because I wanted it to be really nice. And I went and sat in my little armchair upstairs, and I lit a candle, and I put my journal out in front of me. And I just started writing because I wanted to write about the fact that I knew that this was coming up for me because of the fact that I don't let myself be sick. And that kind of thing. But actually what came up with me was I ended up talking to 6-year-old Lauren and 15-year-old Lauren. And I don't know what it was about those two, but I kind of imagined myself going into my house and being like, who do I need to speak to first? And 6-year-old Lauren was there. And I remember 6 was when obviously I was starting to feel a lack of attention, because it's when I started pretending to be poorly. And I vividly remember pretending to be poorly and, being sick. So I got attention and that kind of thing. And I know that as a parent with 4 kids, you do what you can. And now that I'm a grown up, but as a kid, this is what I did. I remember that. And I remember, and I'd said to her, what's the matter? And she was like, I just want someone to listen to me. And I was like, oh, mate, I totally get it. Come with me. I'm listening to you. And I gave her that, I was journaling it out. And then I was like, I could feel that. I was like, I don't want to go in. I don't want to go in there and talk to her. Because I knew that 15-year-old Lauren was going to be a cow. Because I knew she was really angry about it. And I was like, okay. So I was like, I could visualize myself straightening my back and being like, we've got this. We're going to go speak to her and find out what she's got to say. And I was like, I know. Tell me what's going on. And she was furious. And when I got into it, she was furious because she was by 15, I'd pretended to be ill so often that I'd actually started getting ill. And then I'd started struggling with things like the endometriosis and all that kind of stuff and wasn't being heard. So at this point, she's angry with me because she's like, nobody's hearing you.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. But she's angry with me because she's going, she wasn't being listened to, I wasn't being listened to, and now you're not listening. She's going, you're not listening to me. You're not listening to either of us. So you're still making yourself sick because you're still not listening. And then she's literally like, and it's not mum, and it's not your brother, and it's not all of these people who you used to be pissed off at. It's you. You're not fucking listening now. I can feel that. And I was like, you're right. You're right, mate. And it's her who's angry at Dave, not me. But it's at her, like, it's coming out where she's like, no, because you're not listening. And then, I sat my husband down and I said, this is what I felt this week. Didn't do it when he was poorly because I'm not a twat. But I just said, this is what I feel this week, because I think when you've got a chronic illness, there's something really exhausting about the fact that I said to him, I was like, if I gave myself the space to be poorly as often as I am, I'm not sure I'd ever get anything done. Because I'm always poorly. Like, it feels constant. And, like, I'm getting so much better. Like, I was really proud of myself for being like, I want a day off on Tuesday, and I took my day off on Tuesday, and that was really good. But yeah, like, that, it just felt really cathartic. And it was really interesting because at the end, it was like that self-compassion thing where I sat with them and I was like, what do we need? What's going to make us feel better? And both of them were like, we want to paint. I know, which I thought was really interesting. And I left them painting in my little house. This was the visualization. It was so vivid. And I felt super calm afterwards because, like, I could feel the emotion that had gone through, and, like, little Lauren and then the bigness of big Lauren's. But it was like, no, like, she's right. She was right. And it, like, that validation. And I just think if anyone's listening to this and thinking, you guys are crazy, it works, man.
It does work.
Like, it works so well. And I'm a scientist, and I have spent my life thinking in black and white, and that has got me into some issues. And it's not that, like, I still believe in right and wrong, and I still think that there are answers and, that kind of thing. But I've just learned that there's a flow to things, and actually things like visualization are unreal. And they won't work for some people. They won't, because they're just not that kind of person. That's fine. But there are some people, and for me, being able to sit with that and really imagine these people, because, my wise elder self, who I love, and we'll talk about that at some point on the podcast, I'm sure, but, like, she's the version of me that's towards end of life, but not poorly or anything. She's just
healthy,
healthy, but old. She lives in my house now. So, like, each of these versions of me has a different space, and they hang out and that kind of thing. So it was really interesting for me to leave 6-year-old me and 15-year-old me in what I perceived as the playroom.
Yeah.
Because actually 15-year-old me just wanted to, like, finger paint with 6-year-old me. And it's like I could see wise elder me with my cup of tea on the porch, looking in going, well done, darling. Oh my gosh. But yeah, so I did think you'd be proud of me for giving myself that time Monday morning.
I am.
And then I felt really good after and managed to get loads of work done, and, kind of just rolled with it. And I was really nice to Dave. I went to the shop and got him some Lucasades and was like, yeah, care for you, because you do deserve it, because you are poor. Do you know what I mean?
It's that, what you just made me think of, Lauren, was that whole thing about the most important journey is kind of to go in and to learn more about yourself, and the fight that you've given yourself about kind of, not allowing yourself to be unwell, almost like a rebellion to 6-year-old and 15-year-old you, who's just like, if you just listened, and it's like, well, I'm not listening anymore. If you hadn't done that, so there's a whole thing, isn't there? And yet the fact that you gave them a voice, and I love that you asked them what they needed.
And it was really great because I had a paint and sip book that night, so I got to paint too.
You did?
Like, I got to paint, and I really loved it.
Yeah.
Like, I loved it.
Your paint was gorgeous.
Thank you. It's on the wall in the bathroom.
Good. And I think that's it, isn't it? It's, it links to, we know ourselves better than anybody else if we listen. It links to listening. Yeah. It links to being able to just take the
sometimes time. Having to learn how to do that. Because, like, before we'd done the work, because I've done positive intelligence you know, before we did that, before we've done all of the stuff that we've learned over the past couple of years doing this, there's no way.
No.
In fact, I wouldn't have called you an idiot, but I might have waited till you left the room and then told Dave you were an idiot. I would never have used those words. I'd never call you an idiot. But I'd have been like, God, she just comes up with all of this. What would I have called it? Not woo. But I'd have been like, she's coming out with all of this soft shit.
Hang on a sec. Are you now saying to me that actually you're really enjoying the stuff that I come up with?
I love what we're doing. Do you know what it is? You know, I think in one of the first episodes that we did of this, we talked about the fact that knowing you matter. When you know you matter, you can treat other people like they matter better. And I don't think people understand that. But look what happened with Dave. I gave myself the space to talk to the versions of me that I knew were having a problem. And I knew that because I'd done the work. I'd done the positive intelligence and stuff. So I could kind of, because I think sometimes we don't realise who's telling us. We just think that we're pissed off for no reason or whatever. But there's a version of you in there somewhere that needs to be heard. And I knew that, you know, and I only knew that because I listened. My relationship with Dave is better because I would have been horrible to him. A couple of years ago, if he'd been poorly, I'd have been a prick. You know, I wouldn't have, I'd have sighed and slammed doors and stomped around the house as though he'd done something wrong. Having this, like, and it was worse than it. The poor guy slept for like
he was peeling
3 days, like he was so poorly, and he deserved a couple of Lucasades and a couple of cinnamon buns, and you know, to be given a cuddle in bed, like he deserved that. And I was able to do that because I gave myself the respect of listening and going, right, okay, this isn't easy. What do you need?
Yeah, that's a biggie, because actually for me this was all about a similar thing when I wasn't very well a few weeks ago. Being at a point now where I can communicate what I need.
Yeah, I need to be off.
This is what I need.
To not do that.
I need to get me a drink. I need a hug, even though I know you don't want this. I need some love and I need some attention, and this is what I need.
Some company.
There's a version of me that would just never have done that I've spoken to in the past. And also coming back to the wiser elder self, I know, and most people do that I work with. I've got a client.
I would recommend working with my mum in coaching. This is not a sell, not an ad. You should work with my mum just to do the wiser elder self from PQ. It is phenomenal. It has been life-changing for me, having that experience.
We used that at a really tough time for you.
Yeah, we did.
And I did it with you.
Yeah.
And I know it had a really
profound,
incredible impact, didn't it?
Yeah.
And does with every client that I work with.
Yeah.
So PQ, by the way, is positive intelligence. It's just a shorter version.
You'll find more information about it on our website whenever I get around to putting a page on about it.
But then you can always message us and ask us about it.
Just send us a message.
And actually, I do think we need to do a podcast on it.
Yeah, I know.
A whole podcast. We
should do that
because
I
absolutely love. Because one of the starting lines is your mind is sometimes your best friend, but it can also be your worst enemy.
Yeah.
Which I think really goes along with what we've been talking about today.
Yeah.
Well,
isn't that a lot to come from? What would your 8-year-old self think of it?
Yeah. So we really would love to know.
Yeah.
What would your 8-year-old self think of you? Are there any versions of you now being inspired by what Lauren shared? Any versions of you that you're thinking you need to let them have a
would you dare go and have would you dare go and sit with them and have a listen? Have a think. Which one's the one that's talking to you the most right now?
Would you write the letter?
Yeah.
From that version to you, and then write a letter back? And a kind letter, an understanding. Because that's the bit, the empathy.
Yeah, I'm not in camp cut them off. I do have to say, I don't know who the person was now who shared it. Like I said, brilliant carousel.
All of those versions of me, the reason I'm me.
Well, gosh, the amount of things we've survived through. Like, sorry, but Pick Me Lauren got me through a huge life experience that she needed to survive through. She got me through a lot of them, actually. And the different versions of me, the 23-year-old me and the 26-year-old me, and the version of me who was pregnant. And, you know, and I look back at each one of them and I'm like, oh, mate, I really didn't like it when you did X, Y, or Z. But the reason I'm alive is because they did that. You know, they took the brunt of what has happened to us. And that's why we're here.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna disparage them for that. I'm not gonna do that.
I'm gonna just talk about something only because I think I need to say it, as in the version of me that I know I struggled with for a little bit, but not for very long, was the version of me that when Nana died and Grandad had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, but particularly when Nana died, I went back to work really quickly.
Yeah.
And I know that there's been a part of me that has thought, I can't believe that I did that. You know, I didn't give myself the space. And I don't think that our culture allows us the space and the time to grieve fully with that. But God love her for what she learned when she kept on going.
And how much she was going through at the time.
All of the things, the stuff that was happening, the hours I worked, the fact I was in, you know, the perimenopause. Well, that was the beginning
of realising the celiac and
all
of that
was happening and going on for me. And I just think, do you know what, without her, I wouldn't be where I am now, without that part of me that never gave up.
Yeah.
Even when I think about the day that I worked from and delivered training from, I think it was probably about 9:30 in the morning till 10:30 at night. We did 2 days of training in one day because I was going away the next day. Dad and I were going to Marrakesh. I was so unwell.
Yeah.
And now I look, and it would be easy to give her a hard time and go, I can't believe that part of me just kept. But thank God she kept going, because then I reached a point where it was like something had to change.
Yeah. They've brought us to exactly where we are right now.
Yeah. I wouldn't be me without that part of her that bloody mindedly went to resilience to the opposite, to the
detrimental
extreme.
Scale.
And I realised again that no more.
Yeah.
Without.
Which is how we are here.
It is. So, gosh.
Yeah, tell us. So we want to know, what would your 8-year-old self think of you? Would you visit any past version of yourself, and what would they say? What do they need to hear? You don't need to tell us that. That one can be private if you'd like it to be. But I do recommend you try it. And come and talk to us about Wise Elder Self, because it is life changing. You should do it.
It has its own. Wise
Elder Self jingle.
Has its own jingle now.
Wiser Elder Self. No. I'm gonna go ahead and call this podcast to an end now.
Yes, I think before it descends into anything else, we should end.
Arrivederci.
Yeah. Thanks ever so much for joining us.
Goodbye.
Bye.